This is Covering the Spread, part of the FanDuel Podcast Network.
I am assuming this is in celebration of our second Dinger Tuesday of the year, but all 30 MLB teams are in action for this Tuesday. So a lot of options across the bet slip over at FanDuel Sportsbook. For today, we're going to dive in to the MLB action at FanDuel Sportsbook and let you know my favorite bets for FanDuel for today. Welcome on into Covering the Spread. That's right here on the FanDuel Podcast Network and FanDuel Research. My name is Jim Sonis. I am a managing editor of digital media for FanDuel Research, here to break down Tuesday's MLB betting action and let you know my favorite bets at FanDuel Sportsbook for today. We're talking SGP, talking total, talking money line, and much more to get you ready for tonight on the Diamond. But first, a reminder, coming up later on today on the FanDuel Research podcast feed, we're going to break down the Masters with myself and Brandon Gadula, talking favorite bets, talking DFS plays, Augusta, and much more. And tomorrow here on Covering the Spread, more betting discussion around the Masters will be in your feed. So if you want the first edition talking about favorite bets and DFS plays, check that out on the FanDuel Research podcast feed and FanDuel TV Plus. If you want the full in-depth betting breakdown, that'll be tomorrow here on Covering the Spread. Of course, you can find that on the Covering the Spread podcast feed, the FanDuel YouTube page, and over on FanDuel TV Plus. Make sure you are subscribed to get these shows as they go live each and every weekday. Dingers, blasts, moonshots, whatever you call them, everyone loves home runs. And with FanDuel's Dinger Tuesday, you can love them even more. That's right. Dinger Tuesdays are back for another season on America's #1 sportsbook. Just bet on a player to hit home run, and FanDuel will give you $5 in bonus bets for every home run hit during that game, as if you needed another reason to love the long ball. Make every moment more. A FanDuel official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. Must be 21 plus and present in select states. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire 7 days after receipt. Max bonus $25 per game. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. FanDuel is offering online sports wagering in Kansas under an agreement with Kansas Star Casino LLC. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit FanDuel.com/RG in Colorado, Iowa, Kentucky, Michigan, New Jersey, Ohio, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Illinois, Tennessee, Vermont, and Virginia. Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP or text NEXT STEP to 53342 in Arizona, 1-888-789-7777, or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut, 1-800-9-WITH-IT in Indiana, 1-800-522-4700. Visit ksgamblinghelp.com in Kansas, 1-877-770-STOP in Louisiana. Visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland, 1-800-GAMBLER.net in West Virginia, 1-800-522-4700 in Wyoming. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 1-800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts, or call 1-877-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York. Now let's dig into this Tuesday MLB betting action over at FanDuel Sportsbook. And it is Dinger Tuesday, as mentioned during that read there. And I talked already on the solo shot about my favorite bets for Dinger Tuesday for tonight. So if you want full thoughts on not just today's slate, you can get all my favorite props each day over on the FanDuel Research podcast feed by listening to the solo shot. So talked about that there, but there is also another bet in that game that I like. So I think we can do a same game parlay at FanDuel Sportsbook for these two bets. The Dinger Tuesday bet I liked the most was Matt Olson plus 320 to hit a home run at FanDuel Sportsbook. And I'm also showing value on the Braves money line, currently at minus 190. If you pair those together at FanDuel Sportsbook, the same game parlay is plus 374. The rationale behind Olson is he's facing Adrian Hauser, who does let up a lot of hard contact. Good overall pitcher, I think, but does let up hard contact and does let up fly balls, specifically to lefties. Matt Olson is among the best power-hitting lefties in all of baseball. Plus 320 to me is a pretty good number. Of course, if Olson goes deep, that's going to increase the odds that the Mets win this game. And I show value on that leg individually. That's minus 190 for the Mets. The Braves are pitching, or minus 190 against the Mets, I should say. Braves starting Reynaldo Lopez, who is re-becoming a starter this year, which is a little scary because pitched pretty well in the bullpen, but he was in the bullpen for a reason back in the day. Now, the first start for Lopez did go well. He went 6 innings and allowed just 1 run, but it was a revenge game against the White Sox. So grain of salt there, given that the offense not that great for the White Sox. With that said, he's facing the Mets here, which is still a plus matchup for him as he tries to get his sea legs back underneath him as a starter. The Mets have a 93 WRC plus against righties on their current active roster since the start of last year. Now that active roster did put up a lot of runs in last night's game. They won that one 8-7, and it's possible they continue to outperform expectations, at least based on my numbers going forward. And it's also possible that Reynaldo Lopez does struggle. But if we look at this matchup, my model shows value in the Braves in general, despite the fact that I view Adrian Hauser as being the better pitcher than Reynaldo Lopez. Other factors strongly favor the Braves. The relief options favor the Braves. The hitting favors the Braves as well. So even though I think Hauser is a better pitcher, and my model thinks that too, it does still show value in the Braves money line at minus 190. Now, I mentioned before there is a correlation between the home run for Olsen and the money line for the Braves. FanDuel knows that. If you were to pair these two bets together, kind of independent of each other, it'd be about plus 570 as the odds, and we're getting it plus 374. So you are paying a pretty heavy tax in order to pair these two bets together. But again, that's there for a reason, because they do correlate well. If Olsen hits a home run, the odds the Braves win this game in general go up, and I already have them as being pretty big favorites to this game to begin with. So I think it's a worthwhile tax personally. I think the same game parlay of plus 374 does make a lot of sense, and that's where I'll go for the first bet for tonight. Is Olsen home run plus Braves money line, but that is plus 374 at FanDuel Sportsbook for tonight. The second bet that I have value on for today also relates to a bet we discussed over on the solo shot. Olsen was the primary Dinger Tuesday bet for me today, but the other one that I should value in was Lane Thomas. Lane Thomas playing in the Nationals versus Giants game. Thomas right now plus 630 to go deep in this game. This one I'm going to play individually, but I think I want to go with the over in this game between the Nationals and the Giants. Over is minus 115. It is a poor park for hitting, and you have to take that into account, but my model does, and it still shows value in the over here. Over 8 runs again, minus 115. I'm in the process of developing a run total model right now, and that run total model has this game at 8.59 runs. It's not a big gap, but it does help we get a push on an over. And again, it's harder for a game to land on an even number of runs because if it's a 4-4 tie or whatever, it goes to extras, and they got to break that tie at some point. So couple advantages working in our favor when it comes to this total sitting at exactly 8 runs versus 8.5. The starters here have their flaws. Josiah Gray starting for the Nationals, and we've got Kyle Harrison starting for the Giants. Both those starters let up walks and let up hard contact and fly balls. Josiah Gray, 13 earned runs across 2 starts. Kyle Harrison walks a lot of guys, lets up hard contact and fly balls. He does get strikeouts too to compensate for that. It's not a bad pitcher, but there are some issues there. And the Giants bullpen is pretty good, but the Nationals is not. The Nats defense is pretty rough as well. So there are a lot of factors pushing us towards the over here, despite the fact it's not the world's best offense, is not the world's best park. Now the Giants pretty good against righties, 108 WRC plus on their current active roster since the start of last year. So that's a plus there too. That total I mentioned of 8.59 does account for the fact this park is below average. And for a lot of parks this time of year, you have to adjust for temperature as well, because they will be at a lower temperature now than their baseline across the entire year. But for San Francisco, that's not the case because it's 60 degrees for tonight. And that's actually about average when it comes to expectations for San Francisco as you get into the summer months as well. So I think what we'll see in this game is a lot of base runners with the potential for crooked numbers via long balls because of the 2 pitchers in this game. You could decide to lump in the Thomas home run if you wanted to. Again, I like that bet individually, and these bets do play well together because, again, we only need 7 more runs if we were to pair them together. If you go with the over and plus 630, that's plus 854 for a same game parlay at FanDuel Sportsbook. I don't mind that personally, but prefer to play them straight up, given that the Thomas home run is plus 630. It's a pretty good number to begin with, and the fact that it is still San Francisco. So if I hit the Thomas bet, I'd like to hit the entire bet and win that bet. So personally, I'll play these straight over 8 runs for Nationals and Giants and stick with Lane Thomas as the home run bet over on the solo shot. But if you want to pair them together, you can definitely do so. Just on my personal preference for tonight. The final bet where I'm showing value for today is in this Twins versus Dodgers game. And right now at FanDuel Sportsbook, the Twins money line is plus 160. And I think that's a pretty good number, given the fact the Twins are not a bad offense and they are at home for this game. Now, granted, they're facing a very stout Dodgers team. So got to downgrade for that. Tyler Glass now starting for the Dodgers, looked really good his most recent start. So there is a reason that the market is a bit lower on the Twins. I just think it's a bit too low right now. The implied odds at FanDuel Sportsbook for the Twins right now, 38.5%. My model has them at 43%. And when you account for home field, that's going to tell you that, hey, the Dodgers are a lot better team in this specific matchup than the Twins are. But we're getting compensated for that with where the market is at right now. The Twins are starting Louis Varland, who had some better underlying numbers than his results last year with a 3.77 skill interactive ERA versus a 4.63 ERA. Now, that's explainable. You're not going to expect his skill interactive ERA to be in line with his ERA because he let up a lot of hard contact, and that's a skill, and it's an issue. And that's why his expected ERA was 4.58. But it does seem like Varland's trying to combat that because he's adding in a curveball this year. He's also using a sinker a tiny bit, like 3% in his first start. I'm not sure if that'll translate, but he did get some ground balls in his first start this year. The results still were not very good, but the biggest issue for Varland was hard contact last year. The batted ball numbers, the plate discipline numbers were pretty good. And if he can get the batted ball numbers to be a little bit better, he could ascend from being a below average starter to being okay as a starter. And if you get an okay starter at home with a plus 160 money line for an offense that can hit the ball pretty well, I think that's pretty tough to turn down. So even with Varland being projected as a below average starter by my numbers, I do still show value on the Twins money line. Again, currently plus 160 at FanDuel Sportsbook. So I think the Twins are good value here, 43% to win by my numbers. And I do agree with what the model is saying here. So we'll take the Twins as home underdogs against the Dodgers, plus 160 the number on that right now over at FanDuel Sportsbook. Did want to run through briefly the other bets recommended over on the solo shot this morning, just in case you don't get time to listen to both these shows. I understand that. That's definitely reasonable. Wanted to at least talk about the other ones in case you can't get to that show as well. So talked about the Olsen home run at plus 320, the Lane Thomas home run at plus 630. Other bets I like for today were a couple of strikeout unders. Sonny Gray pitching for the Cardinals, making his first start this year, skipping a rehab start to make this one. He's going to go 65 pitches according to their manager, and he's still at 4.5 strikeouts at FanDuel Sportsbook under his minus 134. That has been creeping down. It was minus 130 earlier on. I still think there's value in the under based on the fact that Gray will go just 65 pitches for this game for tonight. Again, that comes from the manager. This is not like conjecture, but he skipped his rehab starts. They said, okay, we'll allow you to start this one instead. And they're going to restrict him to 65 pitches. So Sonny Gray under 4.5 strikeouts, minus 134. That is right now over at FanDuel Sportsbook. Other one that I talked about over on the other show was Patrick Sandoval's under on strikeouts. Right now, the under for Sandoval at 5.5 strikeouts is plus 102. This one's creeping against me. Was minus 102 earlier on today. Now to plus 102. But the thought process in being under on Sandoval is that he's throwing through fewer sliders right now. Not his highest strikeout pitch, but still a pitch that does generate some whiffs. So cutting back on the slider, instead throwing a couple more four-seam fastballs. And that's not a trade-off you want if you're looking purely at strikeouts. He's also facing a Rays team that is pretty good against lefties, 130 WRC plus for them against lefties since the start of last year. Strikeout rate better than average for them against lefties too at 21.6%. So it's a tough matchup for Sandoval. He's throwing fewer sliders than he was before, letting up a lot of walks as well, and facing a tough team. So I like the under on Sandoval, 5.5 at plus 102. So to recap, all the recommendations across the entirety today, Olsen, home run, plus 320. Compare that with the Braves money line at minus 190 for a same game parlay at plus 374. Like Lane Thomas to hit a home run at plus 630. Also like the over in that game at 8 runs, minus 115. For the Nationals and the Giants, Sonny Gray under 4.5 strikeouts, minus 134. Patrick Sandoval under 5.5 strikeouts at plus 102, and then the Twins money line plus 160 as they take on the Dodgers for today. Hopefully that's enough as you take in a very fun slate for today. As mentioned, we're talking about home run props, strikeout props, total base props, and stuff like that every weekday over on the Solo Shot, in addition to talking DFS. If you want strikeout props and home run props every single day, check out the Solo Shot on the FanDuel Research podcast feed. Hit subscribe there, but also find the Solo Shot on FanDuel TV Plus. That's all we have here for today on Covering the Spread. Again, back tomorrow talking about the Masters with Brandon Gadula. Make sure you're subscribed to Covering the Spread wherever you get your podcasts to get that one as it goes live. Tomorrow, full in-depth breakdown of betting for Augusta. If you have any questions for me, I am on Twitter at Jim Sonis. You can also find FanDuel Research on Twitter at FanDuel Research. Want to thank you all for tuning in for today. Good luck with your Dinger bets on Dinger Tuesday. Enjoy the baseball. We'll talk to you once again tomorrow to preview the Masters. This has been Covering the Spread right here on the FanDuel Podcast Network.